Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a legal case that is just wild. It's about a homeowner fighting to save his house, who finds himself caught in this bizarre trap. A single piece of paper, a document he filed to prove he was struggling financially, somehow becomes the very thing that costs him everything. And, as you'll see, it kicked off a huge battle over the fundamental rules of justice itself.
Okay, so let's just jump right in with the question that gets to the absolute heart of this whole thing. Imagine you're in court, and you're trying to show, hey, I'm going through a really tough time. What happens when the very evidence you give them, the proof of your struggle, gets twisted around and used as a weapon against you? Well, that's exactly what we're looking at here.
And this isn't just some abstract legal debate. We're talking about $305,000. For the homeowner, a man named Jeremy Bass, this was life-changing home equity on the line. All of it, put at risk because of a really strange procedural twist. All right, so let's set the stage. We're diving into this really high-stakes foreclosure case, venture capital versus homeowner. We're going to see how one single exchange in a courtroom laid the groundwork for everything that came crashing down later.
Now, the timeline, this is where things get complicated, and they get complicated fast. Just look at these dates. We're talking about a 10-day span here. In just 10 days, we go from crucial testimony to an appeal getting filed, and then the final judgment comes down. This super rapid sequence of events, it's the key to this entire legal mess.
So check this out. Here's the critical moment from back on December 6th. The court asks Mr. Bass, "You're still living there, correct?" And he says, "I can't, no." He explains it's uninhabitable. Now here's the kicker. At that moment, the court just accepts his answer. No challenge, no objection, nothing. It just becomes an established fact in the case. Now, you got to remember that detail because it is about to become so important. All right, let's move to the next piece of this puzzle. Let's see how a simple document, something that was only meant to prove Boss's financial hardship, got completely reframed by the other side. It was turned from proof of his struggle into what they called a legal flaw. And right here, this lays out the central conflict in a nutshell. On one side, you have the plaintiffs claiming Bass is just gaming the system, profiting from all this. But to prove them wrong, Bass submits an affidavit, and all it shows is that he's actually paying $875 a month to live somewhere else. The document had one simple purpose, to prove hardship, not that he was making any profit. So this created a classic catch-22. It's a total no-win situation, right? If Bass didn't provide proof of his living expenses, they'd say his claims of hardship were just empty words. But when he did provide the proof, that very same proof was weaponized against him as evidence that his whole defense was bogus. Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
So you're probably wondering, wait a minute, how could this even happen? How can evidence of hardship be turned completely on its head? Well, according to Boss's legal team, it happened because the court crossed a fundamental legal line. It used its power after the appeal had already been filed.
And to really get this, we have to talk about something called jurisdiction. It's basically a court's official power to make decisions. The analogy here is perfect. Think of a referee in a football game. Once that final whistle blows, the ref can't just run back on the field and change a call. The game's over. It's the same idea here. Once an appeal is filed, the trial court's power is supposed to be strictly limited. That power has moved on to the higher court. So Bass's lawyers came back with this really sharp three-part argument. First, they said the court acted ultra vires, which is just a fancy legal term for acting beyond its power, by using that new affidavit after it didn't have jurisdiction anymore. Second, it broke a rule called law of the case by basically going back on its own word and ignoring the testimony it had already accepted. And third, it totally improperly twisted his proof of hardship into a reason to call his whole defense frivolous.
And this one single error, this jurisdictional overreach, it wasn't just some minor technical issue. No way. Baz's team argued it set off a chain reaction, a whole cascade of events with devastating real-world consequences.
I mean, you can literally watch the dominoes fall right here. First, the court uses the affidavit it shouldn't have touched. Boom. That leads directly to the next domino. His entire defense is ruled frivolous. Because of that, his request to pause the foreclosure gets denied. And without that pause, the final heartbreaking domino falls. He's physically removed from his home, all while his appeal was supposedly still in process. And this is where we kind of have to zoom out, because this case becomes about so much more than one homeowner in Idaho. At its core, this is a fight for the integrity of the entire justice system. It's a battle for the fundamental right to due process and a fair appeal. Now, focusing on jurisdiction like this, it was an absolutely brilliant legal strategy. Here's why.
Appeal courts take these kinds of errors extremely seriously. They review them de novo. That means they look at the whole issue from scratch, with fresh eyes, giving zero weight to what the lower court decided. An error like this can't just be ignored or waived. And if the higher court agrees the trial court overstepped its bounds, it can wipe out the entire proceeding and set a powerful new precedent for everyone.
So when you boil it all down, this isn't really just about a foreclosure. It's about protecting every citizen's right to a meaningful appeal. I mean, what good is the right to appeal if a lower court can just play procedural games and render the whole thing pointless before it even gets started? This is a fight to make sure the rules of the game are actually followed, especially when the stakes are this high.
So as the Idaho Supreme Court mulls this case over, we're left with this really profound question that strikes at the very heart of our legal system. When the procedures, the very guardrails that are meant to ensure fairness, are manipulated, can the outcome, whatever it is, still be called justice?